I just want to say thanks to Jess and James for this amazing reading series. I've not been around a lot this semester because my wife and I had a kid, and that's its own whole other thing, which I don't even know what to say about that one. But it's good to be here. She can't be here tonight. She's actually under the weather, unfortunately. But I thought it was really cool. One of the things I like about when James reads, he usually begins with stuff by other people, right? Not his own work. I'd like to do the same thing. I'm going to read a poem by a poet named James Hoch. It's H-O-C-H. And this is a poem that's pretty new to me. I just accepted this with my co-editor, Todd Kaneko, this morning for the journal we co-edit. It's called Waxwing. And this, to me, we publish a lot of stuff that we love. This is one of the more striking poems I've honestly encountered that someone sent us. And I know this poet's work a bit, but I was really honored he sent it our way. And asked him, do you mind if I read your poem today? And he was like, yeah, go for it. So I'm going to try it out. And it's titled Dedication. I want to dedicate this poem to my son, who I worry into a misshapen form of worry. And to worry itself, how it hangs like a blanket over the head of a horse. Why do they blanket the heads of horses, standing by themselves alone in a field, not seeing, but snorting and roaming, their skins seeking each other's aloneness? I have no idea. I have never owned a horse, though property is no giver of ideas. Forgive me, my mother has died, and I am trying to understand, so my son understands why his father's saying nothing in the car, the yard, the table. My mother has died. Do you know? It's like standing in a field, swallows carving flit and whir and hatch. Then it's like the field being gone. No one notices in the clumsy fog. Do you see there is no distance? She is not a thing. There are no figures for this grief. The air tastes of ground. Have you ever lost all context? I tack this poem to a telephone pole that survives drought, survives flood, though it is made of heat and water. The other day, walking across the room, my son looked at me like he was eyeing a sick planet, then put his arms around his weeping father, who can't make it through a meal without weeping, as if holding a planet might heal it. I want to thank him, but only have this poem. A raft I've made from the skins of flayed horses I've filled with air. It floats between us. It is wrong, he feels, asked to wade the river. His love, a busted hydrant on a forever sunny day. It's James Hoch. And I had planned to read from a long poem. I see some of my students here. I lie to my students. You guys know this by now, right? I'm going to do something different. I decided that it was a bit more, it's harder to excerpt from that poem, I think, and have it come across in a way that sort of is good at a reading. So I'm going to excerpt from something else. I'm going to read some prose, which I thought would be maybe even a bit lighter. I'm going to read from a novella that came out a few months ago, and it's titled 1982. And a few of you may remember 2 years ago, I irritated the hell out of you on Facebook, which I have since quit, with all of my 1982, like songs and sneakers and Walkmans and blah, 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 blah. I'm starting to talk like Alan Ginsberg, I'm sorry. But here it is. I'm going to read a little bit of this. Because it's a novella, I'll just tell you a little bit of background, and I'm going to try not to give too much background at readings, but it's actually a pretty conventional, like, coming-of-age story in some ways. It's a little kid. He's 9 years old. His name is Nicholas Mikos Jr. He's a Greek-American kid from urban Connecticut. His mom and father divorced, and then they moved. He and his mother moved to the suburbs with her new boyfriend, who's kind of like an asshole kind of character. And what I'm going to do, it's in 3 parts. There's an epilogue. I'm going to read the end of part 1 and then kind of into the second part. So still toward the beginning. The parts get bigger as it goes on. And the only other thing you need to know, I think, is that each chapter of the novella is subtitled after a film that came out in 1982. And I made myself do them chronologically because I had to have some kind of some kind of restriction that kind of kept me up at night. So here we go. Who was alive in 1982, by the way? You're going to depress me by not. Yeah, like two of us, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. It's just sort of the greatest year in American history, and only two of us were alive. It's too bad. Here we go. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. The beast lies inertly in a glass case as the one called Khan probes its deep crevices with some sort of pliers or tweezers. Something between armadillo and 10-pound rat, yellow-eyed and bark-scaled, its mouth a red slit, serrated pincers held apart with a stick. The beast winces when Khan extracts from its prehistoric folds 2 slick worms. Nick Jr. thinks that Khan looks like the singer of Air Supply. He feels his father stir a little in the seat beside him. Khan places a worm each in the overturned helmets of the seated and wristbound astronauts, or whatever the good guys in this movie are called. When he puts the helmet on the first man and then the second, the camera zooms in toward their faces, sweating inside the helmet's steaming bubbles of glass, the worms inching toward the cavities of their ears. Nick Jr. closes his eyes. He tries not to think of what a worm could do inside a wet, living skull. He thinks of the chubs he and his father buy for bait, impaled on hooks, cast out into Long Island Sound in the dark before the sun has risen, buckets filling on the good mornings with thrashing electric silverfish. But all that is over now. He feels his father's hands over his ears, over his own hands. Nick Jr. realizes his head is lowered, almost between his legs, and he feels the water drip from his eyes. "I'm sorry," Nick Sr. whispers. "Nick, I'm sorry I yelled at you. You have to go to school, Nick. That wasn't like you." Nick Jr. leans back, folds his hands in his lap, the way he does in church at Greek Easter. Happy belated Greek Easter, by the way. That was yesterday, right? His father's thumb unfolds his son's hands, and he takes one small hand in his. On the screen, the Enterprise has been hit. The Vulcan, Spock, reels backward from the blast, crashes into some wall of incomprehensible machinery. His eyes close. Nick Jr. pictures the moving van parked in front of his house, his mother and her new man packing, the awful sound of the masking tape each time it seals a box, which needs to be sealed not just once apparently, but 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Nick can even hear the awful sound, the sealing that sounds like tearing, the closing that feels like opening, from upstairs on the 3rd floor, where he plays Centipede with Sergio and Jose atop volume. He looks at his father from the side, the slicked back hair, obliviously out of style, right eye glinting green-gray as the Atlantic. He takes his hand away. Rocky III. "Isn't that the guy you said beat Andre the Giant at Shea Stadium like 2 years ago?" says Jose. "He lost," says Sergio. "Andre the Giant body slammed him. That's what I heard." On the last day of school, balmy afternoon, with the windows open, the first day of summer vacation, Sergio, Jose, and Nick Jr. sit watching Hulk Hogan pummel and bloody the Italian stallion, Rocky Balboa. "Damn, this is embarrassing," says Jose, as Hogan heaves Rocky above his head and into the crowd. "Who's that?" says Nick Jr., pointing. "He looks crazy," says Sergio. In the audience sits a black man with a mohawk and a tuxedo and a light blue ruffled shirt, white feather earrings hanging from each ear, scowling at the fight. "I never seen him," says Jose, "but he looked like he could kick both these guys' asses, for real. Watch, right? You know what's going to happen." A knock at the cracked open door. It's Janet. "That's right," says Sergio. "Weren't we supposed to go get a pizza?" Nick Jr. notices Sergio give Jose a conspiratorial look. "Yo, Nick," says Sergio, "we was thinking we could get a pizza for our last night here. I mean, your last night." Nick says that sounds good. Sergio and Jose both leave the room, and Nick can hear Jose say as he and his brother clomp down the stairs, "Stupido." Janet, a couple steps into the room now, asks Nick Jr. what he's watching. "Rocky," he says. "This is the 3rd one." She sits at the edge of the other bed in the room. Sergio's, and Nick glances at and away from her. She's still in her uniform, pale yellow blouse, brown plaid vest and skirt, black tights, reddish-brown shoes with straps. Nick Jr. knows the outfit by heart. He knows Janet has one more week of school. Her brothers, like Nick Jr., go to public school, but Naomi had decided for some reason that Janet and her sister, who exists only as a framed photo on the living room wall, would attend private school. Sergio and Jose are going to miss you, Janet says, especially Jose. She's watching the TV screen. Rocky, his face swollen and bandaged, is now standing alone on a suspension bridge, staring out at some harbor. Nick, Janet says. Nick Jr. thinks she's about to ask him a question. Then he thinks his name was a question, as in, are you listening to me? He doesn't know what to say, and the fact that he and Janet are in the same room, alone, the door only half open, tightens his chest. He tries not to picture her sitting there, the way she must be looking at him. In his mind, he sees her eyes, the most serious eyes he's ever seen, dark brown and long-lashed, her slightly flared nostrils, the lightest trace of hair above her lips, which make them look even redder, fuller. She's suddenly standing before him, and his line of vision is aimed directly at where her breasts must be. He blushes. She holds out a piece of paper folded what looks like 5 or 6 times, like a spitball, before it's placed in the mouth. He takes the lump of paper, then makes himself look up into Janet's eyes. She smiles, without opening her mouth, and she leaves. That night, the night before Nick Jr. will leave his home and city for another, when he thinks he is the only one awake, not just in his apartment, but in the whole house, he gets out of bed and walks to his window. He unfolds the sweaty piece of paper he has clutched in bed for hours, and he reads, in the streetlight sifting through the curtain, in meticulous, purple cursive, Dear Nick, it was always a pleasure to have you in my house. My mother says you were a good influence on my brothers. I wish we got to know each other better. You will do wonderfully in your new school. I hope you make new friends. I know you will. My sister was as young as you, and one time I thought you two would make a cute couple. But you know she died. She was very pretty and good at school. Even if she was not your girlfriend, I think you two would have been friends. I am almost out of paper. Enjoy your new home. I will never forget you and Jose breakdancing in the kitchen. That was so funny. There was no room left to sign her name. So that's the end of the first part of the novella. So I'm just going to read a couple more from part 2. So, Poltergeist. Jim Harrison. 2 3/4 acres. That's what Nick Jr. looks out at, most of it from his bedroom window. There are no streetlights here, but in the light cast by a fat slice of moon, he can trace the contours of the one tree separate from the woods, which begin about 50 yards away. Nick Jr. hasn't asked his mother or Trevor the name of the tree. It is old, gnarled, one of its branches like a crippled arm, bent the wrong way, hanging low to the ground. The tree is not scary, not like the tree in the movie Nick Jr. watched just a few hours ago, his mother and Trevor retiring to bed, not even halfway through. His mother making Nick Jr. promise to turn off the TV if he got too scared. She and Trevor closing their door faintly upstairs. Nick Jr. watched the whole movie and he can't sleep, but not because of the movie, not because of its evil tree, not because of the girl with the white blonde hair and white nightgown crawling on the carpet, kneeling before the TV, reaching her hand toward the snowy screen, then turning toward her sleeping parents and brother in the big adult bed, and in her sugar and spice and everything nice voice saying, "They're here." If Nick Jr. had a sister, he thinks, she would have black hair, like his father's. His mother's hair is blonde, but only because she bleaches it. She has dark eyebrows, which she tweezes while sitting on the couch and smoking her Virginia Slims each morning after Trevor has left for the Metro North, just a few stops away from New York, where he works. Trevor. Nick Jr. has never known anyone with this name, never heard anyone speak in such a nasally, confident, and crass way. Sergio and Jose curse, but Trevor says words like cocksucker and fucknut, words that erupt from some bubbling, toxic source. Nick Jr. is not afraid of him, but he does not trust him. Each morning, Monday through Friday, Nick Jr. brings his mother hot coffee while she tweezes her black, beautiful eyebrows. and he is happy to have the house, even in its bare enormity, with just the two of them. In the movie, the tree appeared to have two heads growing from its trunk. One looked human in profile, a little like George Washington, the other alien, wide-faced like E.T., but scowling, almost eyeless. After the tree crashed through the kid's bedroom window with its knobby arthritic limbs and stole the boy away from his family, a tornado came, like in The Wizard of Oz, but it only ripped the evil tree into the sky. The good family and its pets were left unharmed. Then they packed up all their things and moved away. Nick Jr. watches the tree in the distance and listens to the new sounds. Crickets, silence, no police sirens, no families above, below. Nick has never lived in a house without other families and their noises and smells permeating his own apartment. The cut fruits and fried oils in the air as he brushed his teeth, the spats and laughter in Spanish and Jamaican as he, his mother, and it seems so long ago, his father sat at the kitchen table with their own plates full of lamb and spinach, their mouths and eyes full of love. Back in bed, Nick Jr. stares at the nightlight. Yoda, the elder Jedi, green and wise as a statue. In a few hours, it will be morning, and because it is still summer, and he is still a boy, his mother has said, no one will come to wake him. The Secret of Nim. It's a messed up movie. It's a messed up movie. The rats toil and grind, heave their collective rat weight to turn the wheel its spokes like the oars of a slave ship, to lift the cable of the pulley, hoist the home of the mice, the lesser creatures, out of the muck. The plow has come early this year, the great owl had said, move your family. And so Mrs. Jonathan Brisby, mouse widow, mother of pneumatic Timothy, had gone to the rats for their improbable help. The rats are pelted with rain, slick with it in the dark field of the farmer whose electricity they steal to power their subterranean kingdom. Now the mouse house is aloft, dripping mud, and the rats of toil, the lesser of the greater creatures, put their shoulders to the wheel, changing the gears of their makeshift machine, now a crane moving the mouse house through the night air toward safer terrain. But the evil rat, Jenner, hater of mice and with his eye on the rat crown, cuts the cables in the shadowy bowels of the crane. The house collapses and shatters. Nicodemus is dead. Nicodemus is dead, cry the mice left living, crawling from the wreckage. Nicodemus, old white-whiskered king of the rats and a friend to mice, dead. Nick Jr. sits on his bed, imagines his father dead. At the funeral, Nicholas Jr., son of Nicholas Mikos Sr., once husband of Gloria Mikos, longshoreman and union steward, Greek, Catholic, friend of dogs and lover of baseball, deceased, hit once in the head by the iron hook of a crane. Nick Jr. feels ashamed of himself. He gets out of bed and turns off the TV, his own TV, in his own room. That night he dreams of a clumsy crow tethered to a plow by a mess of red string, which tangles and tangles each time Nick Jr. cuts into it. And I'll just read one more. I had to read E.T. E.T. the extraterrestrial. Nick Jr. sits in the theater somewhere in Fairfield between his mother and Trevor as Elliot baits the alien with little piles of Reese's Pieces. First on the porch, then on the stairs, inside the house, a few pieces at a time, less than a handful, the long brown fingers reaching for the candy, the sound of crunching, then another little pile, and another along the hallway toward Elliot's bedroom door, which, once the alien is inside, Elliot closes, locks. Nick Jr. drops 3 Reese's Pieces into his mouth, lets them sit there while he moves his tongue around, dissolving the candy shells, so he can get to the peanut butter, chew without making a sound. In the same way that Trevor had given Nick Jr. the TV, suddenly after dinner, no real occasion, he had made the sudden announcement that the 3 of them would go see the movie that the whole country, if not the whole world, was talking about. Nick Jr. feels Trevor's presence to his left, this man who seems to be trying his best, doing all the things he should as the new man in Nick Jr.'s mother's life, and yet he does it so confidently, with no apparent thought, that to Nick Jr. it feels he doesn't know the word. E.T. hides in the closet amongst the stuffed animals, dozens of them, trying to keep his eyes open like theirs as the mother peers inside for something, some noise she heard or thinks she heard. She scans the toys 3, 4, 5 times, closes the door. Nick Jr. rolls the Reese's Pieces around his mouth until the shells, yellow, brown, orange. He can't see in the dark when he pulls them from the bag, soften in his mouth, and then he chews. Elliot and his brother and sister and comically hide E.T. from their mother for days, and one afternoon, the mother at work, no father to be seen, and the children at school, E.T. has the house to himself. He eats leftovers out of the fridge, opens a Coors. He turns on the TV. Nick Jr. has been tempted to try the same thing, except for the beer, when Trevor is at work, his mother at the gym or the hairdresser. But he has stayed in his room with his own TV, his own Star Wars figures and baseball cards, until his mother has gone home and made him lunch. The immensity of the house is no longer incomprehensible, as it was in the first few weeks Nick Jr. had lived in it. Now he understands just how much space he is trapped in. The mother, it turns out, is not who the kids really have to worry about. Men show up in baggy white bodysuits and masks in order to take E.T. away for some kind of scientific experiments. Their steady, faceless breathing sounds to Nick Jr. like Darth Vader. Then Nick Jr. beholds the image from the movie posters, from the TV, from the T-shirts, magazines, and lunch boxes, the bicycle lifted into the sky and crossing the full moon, Elliot still pedaling in disbelief, and E.T. hooded and in the bike's front basket, their silhouette of escape seared into Nick Jr.'s brain as he sees it for the first time in motion. Trevor says he has to go piss, asks if anyone needs anything. Nick Jr. shakes his head. His mother whispers, "Diet Pepsi." Nick Jr. thinks that Elliot must suddenly realize that E.T. is taking them not just toward the moon, but beyond, to E.T.'s home. Elliot will get to meet all the other E.T.s, families of them, whole countries of them, and he will have to learn their ways. But the bicycle lands on the other side of the canyon in dark Los Angeles, and Nick realizes that Elliot never would have expected E.T. to have such an impossible plan. Elliot, unlike Nick Jr., can think and feel exactly what his friend can think and feel. Nick Jr. has never had a make-believe friend. He never needed one. But on the car ride home, he thinks it might be nice, even if the friend were temporary, a visitor. Even if he couldn't make the yellow daisies come back to life. Even if she couldn't heal your cut finger with her finger, reaching toward you, glowing. Thanks so much.